So, Elden Ring Nightreign. Look, I'm gonna be honest, I wasn't really that excited for the game, especially after seeing trailers of how it would play. You're telling me that we're gonna drop into a random generated world where there is an ever closing circle and you have to make sure to defeat bosses, enemies, and get strong weapons before that circle closes onto you. That sounds like Fortnite with extra steps. Yeah, miss me with that bullshit. So for a while I was not that interested. I just wanted another story-based single-player Souls game, one where you could get immersed into the world, fight cool new bosses, discover hidden lore and have fun exploring without feeling like there's a gun to the back of your head telling you to get to the next objective as quickly as possible. However, that was months ago, so fast forward to the release of the game, I was just like, let me just buy it. I knew exactly what I was getting into. I knew there were different classes with each having their own specialty, the map would be somewhat randomish with different bosses to fight, and there would be 3 days in total with each day session lasting around 15 minutes long. But man, what I didn't expect was me enjoying the game as much as I did. I swear, after the first couple of deaths, bro, I can't say that. Bro, that comment was right. I can't pronounce my H's right. What the hell? And after my first couple of deaths and finally defeating Gladios, that's when the game started clicking for me. Despite me not having anyone to play with, because none of my friends except for one play Souls games, and the other guys on PlayStation, which meant I had to play with randoms online. And trust me, these randoms, they definitely make a part of the experience. So let's talk about them for a bit. Playing the game with randoms, you're either gonna have a super smooth experience or an absolutely mutt, or an absolutely terrible one. On one hand, you got guys who know where to go, collecting all the Estus charges, hanging up camps, fighting mini bosses, and progressing the levels very quickly. Or not levels, but days. It's almost like you guys were synergized with one another, reading each other's thoughts. Then you have the other ones who seem like they just share a single brain cell between one another. They either try to fight all the hardest bosses on day 1 while only being level 2, ignore all the churches, executor mains failing to parry shit, your Duchess dying in one hit, Raider blocking your attacks with his ult, stuff like that. But I'm not gonna lie, for the most part my teams have been really great, at least post Gladios, except for a couple times of course. But if you don't want to rage, definitely play with your friends. That way y'all can actually interact, use strategies, and come up with plans on how to make the most of each day's session. But I would be lying if I didn't say that playing with randoms was actually kind of fun at times. But yeah, the randoms definitely made the overall experience of the game a bit more interesting and kind of fun. Now let's talk about the other great thing about the game, and that's the classes, or the Nightfarers, as that's what they're called here. There are 8 of them. Wilder, the Night Guy, who's the most balanced out of all of them. Executor, the more dex and parry focused class. This is the one where motherfuckers play Sekiro one time and swear they're good with this guy, even though they suck. I'm motherfuckers, by the way. Duchess, another dex focused one, however she demands real skill in order to use properly. And speaking of skill, her actual in-game skill is pretty good as it can replay a moment where an enemy was a few seconds ago. So if someone did big damage to a boss and the skill is used, then the boss will take the same damage again. This is pretty cool, but again requires strategy. Guardian, he's a tank and has the most health out of all of them. Raider, another tank but a bit more mobile than Guardian. Revenant, a doll that basically makes you feel like you're playing as Megami from JJK, summoning a bunch of undead spirits to help you in battle. She also comes in clutch if your teammates are down. Then you have Recluse, who is basically the mage of the game. Very squishy but has great damage output potential, and the one that, the gooners chose. And finally, Iron Eye, my personal favorite class for multiplayer. I swear, this dude is the best. He can basically shoot arrows consecutively from afar, and sure, they might not do big damage, but the fact that you're somewhat far away means that the boss is gonna take a long time to reach you, while the damage keeps building up, while also your teammates are putting the beats on the boss. It's almost like poison on crack, but you're the poison. His ultimate is great for getting rid of crowds and staggering bosses from afar, especially if they're about to pull a bullshit attack. I'm looking at you, Augur, you piece of shit. All the classes in this game are actually really good. Well, I wouldn't say all of them. Some I enjoyed more than others, but in terms of multiplayer, it's definitely Iron Eye. But for solo play, I either go for Wilder for his pure damage output and survivability, or Executor due to the parry. I know a lot of folks say that his curse sword is a bit useless. I wouldn't say it's useless, but it could definitely be buffed a little. But I mostly only pull out the parry mode if the boss is a bit annoying, like the Royal Revenants and the Bell-Bearing Hunter. but again, the classes are actually decent and enjoyable for the most part. And what's cool is that they each have their own little story going on with cutscenes and stuff like that. And speaking of that, Revenant has the creepiest cutscene out of all of them. I think it's time FromSoft needs to make a fucking horror game. Shit, technically all the games are horror games if you think about it, like Dark Souls and all that. Okay, I'm yapping way too much. Now let's talk about the gameplay itself. In terms of basic combat, it's literally just Elden Ring with some added tweaks. For example, each character have two skills, an ultimate and another regular. The regular skill charges up pretty quickly, and for most Nightfarers, they're not necessarily damage dealers. However, the ultimate gauge itself is the one that you should always look out for. Using these unleashes your character's ultimate, and they can come in clutch at times. They also give iframes when using them, so if you feel like you're about to get killed by an enemy or boss, it's always good to pop one of these. In terms of which ultimate is the best, again it really depends on the person, but my personal favorites are Executor, Guardian, Wilder, and for crowd control, Iron Eye. So that's pretty much the standout things about the combat. Again, it's just Elden Ring with some, fine tuning. Now, what about the gameplay loop? Is it fun? I mean, for the most part it is, but it can get a bit frustrating at times. This game is a roguelike, meaning that a lot of the stuff like items you pick up and the world itself is RNG based. You basically drop into the world most of the time next to trash enemies, and here you can choose what to do before the rain closes. But here's the thing, sometimes you may land right next to 3 churches, giving you enough time to do other stuff, while other times you have to do a whole cross-country run just to get to one. Again, this game is very RNG based. Sometimes you may have a shifting world event where parts of the map changes, allowing you to fight new enemies and collect new items, and just like whole new areas unlocked. Personally, I don't really like these that much, especially the Scarlet Rot and the lava ones, mostly because they throw off my game a little bit. But the gameplay loop is basically this: drop into the map, kill mobs, bosses, collect flasks, wait for the day to end, kill the night boss. Day 2 starts, you fight more enemies, collect smithing stone, fight more bosses, and hope that you're at a high enough level for the end of day boss for night 2 and for the night lord that you're about to face in night 3 or day 3. So yeah, that's pretty much it when it comes on to gameplay loop. Sometimes there might be invading bosses like Libra, Augur, and Margit as well, but these are pretty rare and don't happen too often. And now that we're on the topic of bosses, let's talk about the returning ones. I want to talk about the Night Lords, but before I do, let's talk about the returning bosses. So yeah, Nightreign has returning bosses from previous games, not just Elden Ring, but you probably know that by now. However, what you and most other people didn't know is the small amount of them that actually return. I remember seeing people making lists on all the bosses from Dark Souls they want to see again, and I'm sorry to break your bubble, but all the returning ones are a bit mid in my opinion. Okay, not all, but some. You got great ones like Dancer of the Boreal Valley and the Nameless King, maybe Smelter Demon. However, you got bullshit like Centipede Demon, Gaping Dragon, Duke's Dear Freyja, the mid ones. And look, I know the term bullshit might be a bit too harsh on them because they're not even all that bad. They're super easy. But man, out of all the great bosses from like Dark Souls 1 for example, like Gwyn, Calamite, Artorias, Monos, shit, even Ornstein and Smoke, y'all chose Gaping Dragon and Centipede Demon? Like, what? Okay, so maybe they chose the bigger bosses because it's better to fight with multiple people, and the ones I mentioned are better for one-on-one encounters. Okay, so what about the bosses from Dark Souls 3 then? Yeah, Nameless King and Dancer are great additions and are super fun to fight, but you could also bring in guys like Abyss Watchers, Dragon Slayer Armor, Pontiff Sullivan, Deacons of the Deep. Okay, maybe not that one. But Gale, literally, why not bring in Gale? The boss that has been crowned as the best boss in Souls history by many fans. And look, I know y'all are mad at me for glazing again, but trust me, I have to glaze Gale at least, once per video. I know this is just a small nitpick, but I wish they went all out with bringing back the older bosses. And speaking of bosses, let's talk about the Night Lords. In Nightreign, there are 8 final bosses called Night Lords. For each day you fight a specific one, each of them having their own weaknesses, which thankfully the game tells you outright. The first one you're gonna face is Gladios, who's basically Cerberus. This damn mutt gave me, and I'm sure a lot of people, a migraine, due to how hard he was. I swear, I didn't beat him until like couple hours in, but all the randoms didn't know what the hell to do, which is fair because he's literally the first boss. but eventually I was able to beat it. The second one is Sentient Pest, a very mid boss in my opinion that's, there's not really too much to talk about when it comes onto it. Then you have Augur, Libra, Fulgor, the Ice Dragon, and finally Holster the Night Lord, or Holster. If you ask me which one is my favorite, I would definitely say the final Night Lord. Despite him currently kicking my ass on solo, I was able to defeat him with a good team on multiplayer, but again, solo is a whole other challenge. But despite this, the reason why I like him a lot is because he reminds me of Gale mixed in with a little bit of Victorious. Now, that aside, I was surprised on how great most of the Night Lords were. They didn't feel cheap, and some of them are even on par, or dare I say, better than most of the other Souls game bosses. I wish in the future there's gonna be some type of mode to just, refight a specific Night Lord without having to go through a whole 30 minutes of bullshit. Now, despite the game being fun, it still has its fair share of issues, or in better words, issues that I personally didn't like. For one, no voice chat on release. It's very hard to communicate strategies with randoms when you don't have a voice chat, especially in a boss fight. At first, I thought they didn't include this because it may not be FromSoft's style, but I do think even Dark Souls 3 had a voice chat, which I didn't even know existed until today. So literally, I don't even know what the excuse was for not having one in this game. The lack of crossplay is also an issue. Now this might be coming soon, but it's also annoying not to have in 2025. Another thing is the lack of good past bosses. So this is another one where they're most likely going to quote unquote fix soon, because apparently they want to add updates with new bosses. Hopefully with those type of updates we get some more of the cooler Dark Souls ones and some new Night Lords. Speaking of Night Lords, I wish there was a way we can refight them again without having to go through 30 minutes of run back. Because seriously, the final boss is so cool and I want to fight him over and over again and learn his moveset, but unfortunately I have to go through a half an hour of RNG just to hopefully get to him. Again, super minor nitpicks. Okay, so that's it for Elden Ring Nightreign. Again, I definitely recommend this game if you have like friends who are into Souls or Souls-like games. Bro, trust me, just play the game. And even if you don't have a lot of friends that play the games, like me, none of my friends play Souls games except for one, and he's on PlayStation, so I can't even play with him. I would still say give the game a shot. I mean, it's just 40 bucks. And look, I know money don't grow on trees, I know, but still, if you don't want to pay 40 bucks, just wait on it to go on sale, probably in the next 2 to 3 months or some shit. But I would definitely not recommend this if you're just solely looking for a slower paced single player Souls like game or Souls game. But then again, I'm looking for that type of stuff, but I still ended up enjoying Nightreign, so I definitely think you should give the game a shot. I mean, just play it for an hour, and if you don't like it, just refund it. And it's all up to you at the end of the day. So that's it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and like and subscribe if you want to. And I hope you guys have a good one.